Hi there, this is Jennifer. Welcome to Crafting in Carrollville. If you're new here, I'm so glad you tuned in. Please subscribe, like, share, all of those things that will help us get the word out on YouTube. These are just a few of the products that we are upcycling today. All of these things came from my local bins store. I've been upcycling through my stash, and if you've watched my videos, that's what we've been doing for several weeks now. I'm taking this old crate that I bought at the bins. It says $2.99 on it from Goodwill. I know I didn't get it at Goodwill. So apparently it came from the Goodwill, and the bins is where all the Goodwill stuff goes to die. So I've taken this crate apart, and now I'm just going to make it into a tote. So those two side pieces that were originally the crate are now going to be the two side pieces that are going to be my tote. But in order to do that, I have to cut them down into sort of that cutting board shape that is on the sides of most totes. So I've just freehanded one side, and now I'm going to use the template that I made with that freehand line to complete both sides of my cutting board shapes. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just using a pencil to trace those lines that I need. I'm going to use my jigsaw. I'm going to go outside and use my jigsaw to cut those lines. If you're using power tools, be safe and wear some protective equipment. I do, but I don't like to cut inside. See that price tag? It originally was at the Goodwill, but when they're done and they've done everything they can do to sell things at the Goodwill, they put it over at the bins, and aren't we glad? I didn't get that pencil line quite dark enough, so I'm going to go back over it with a part of my pencil that actually has lead showing. Then I'm going to take that outside and use a scroll saw blade in my jigsaw to cut those shapes out. Super simple. I have a cutting table right outside the back door of my workshop, and that's where I've taken them. Now I'm going to take those slats that came off of the same crate, obviously, and I'm going to tape them together so that I can make some cuts. I need them to be a little bit shorter than they were, and I'm using the drop off from the bundle I've already cut to measure the second bundle. And now I'm ready to assemble what's going to be my tote. These are just the crates that you buy at Michael's, Hobby Lobby. They come in unfinished wood. They're usually $12 to $15. And this one was old. It was just sitting around my workshop. I wasn't using it because whoever had had it previously had painted it blue, and I really, besides for storage purposes, had no reason to have a blue crate. We do use these same crates as risers and part of our setup when we do shows, so they're a pretty familiar thing at most shows that we go to. I just didn't need this one to be blue, and I definitely wasn't going to sand it down and do anything about that, so I figured it was just taking up space and I would turn it into a tote. I don't know how often y'all do upcycles where you create a tote or upcycle a tote or whatever it is you do, but they always sell. So no matter what it is, they always sell. I'm using hot glue and my brad nail gun here to reattach those slats to the boards that they were originally on. Wood glue's a great permanent fix, and then the brad nails will just help me be able to move on with my project and definitely reinforce those holds. These were originally held together with staples, and I pulled all of those out when I disassembled my crate. I did that off camera because that was just the easier way to do that. Sometimes I just don't remember to film every single thing that I do. But I did disassemble that crate, obviously. I'm building up both sides, and now I'm doing the bottom. And for the bottom, I'm just going to butt 3 of those slats together so that there's no space between them. And I'm obviously doing the same thing, wood glue and my brad nailer. I love the way these projects turn out. I feel like I had to be creative this week because last week I was not necessarily just creative, just sort of, I felt like last week I didn't put a whole lot of effort into my projects. So this week I wanted to make it up to you and be a little more creative and just have more imagination than I used last week. Now I'm using this spindle that I got from a crib that I disassembled, and I've already trimmed it down to the width that I need it to be so that it can span the 2 sides of that tote. And now I'm just finding a paddle bit that will allow me to make a hole big enough to fit that spindle in. So I've done that. I've drilled those holes, and now I'm just sticking it in there, and I'm going to glue it and use my brad nailer once again to get it all snug in there. Now you're going to see me come in with, there's 2 holes. I kind of drilled a little deep in those sides, so there's 2 little holes in the sides that I'm going to fill in with some wood glue and some of my sawdust that I created. So that's what you see me do here. I just spread some wood glue in there, and then I put some sawdust in there and I let it dry. Then I come in with a sander, and I want to sand all of those fresh cuts on all the edges of my tote. Make sure there isn't any wood where it shouldn't be, and make sure that there's no reason for anybody to get splinters when they pick this up. So that's what I've done there. Now I'm painting this tote. This is the color that I'm using in all of my projects in this video. It's called Pale Moon. It's a chalk paint from Hobby Lobby. It was on their clearance section a while ago, so I've really just been trying to use up everything in my workshop. We've said that over the last 12 or so videos, just trying to upcycle our way through my hoard. And today I just wanted to show you that you can reimagine the most basic things into something really great. So I've painted this, now I've distressed it, and I'm stressing it further. I'm using my hand sander and then also my little finger sander to get in there and distress every part of this, the spindle handle, the edges. I'm okay if some of that blue paint shows through because it will lend itself to our finished project here. I'm okay with that color peeking through, so I've tried to make that happen. I've also decided for some reason to wax this already. I don't know why, but now I'm coming in, and on these 4.5 square inch wood pieces, I'm going to decoupage this Highlands cow. I got this graphic from Creative Fabrica, and I've printed it out on rice paper with my regular inkjet printer. I've sealed it with some sealer, whatever I have on hand. I had a matte finish sealer that I've used, and now I'm decoupaging it onto that board with Mod Podge, just a very thin coat of Mod Podge, always a thin coat. Gonna let that dry, gonna sand off the edges, all the things that we do when we're doing this process. So I have 2 of those. I only show you me completing the back or the front of the tote, but I do the other side as well. So but I don't do it on camera. And here I am just fooling around with something that's in the future. This is future Jennifer, and we haven't gotten there yet. Okay, so now we are going to decoupage some flowers onto the front of this tote. I love this project. What I had imagined was this Highlands cow just walking through a flowery meadow, which is hilarious because we've been to where the Highlands cows are recently, and there ain't no flowers and there ain't no meadow. It is just a pasture, a dirty pasture with lots of piles you have to avoid. Do not wear flip-flops if you're going to visit a cow pasture, okay? Wear your boots. So I've just printed out these graphics in sections so that well, basically because I'm printing on an 8.5 by 11 paper and I need to do it that way, but also because I wanted to have some control over where I place them, and this is helping me get that. I'm just using the same light thin coat of Mod Podge, and this is rice paper. Once again, I've decided that rice paper is my favorite. Like the tissue paper I used for a long time because it seemed necessary if I wanted to do decoupage, but I really like rice paper. I love the variation in the paper itself. It's like a handmade paper. Anyway, I'm enjoying using that instead of tissue paper. It's also a little less fragile, so I appreciate that as well. But it gives you the exact same look with a little less hassle, is what I would say. Again, I'm just in love with the way these projects turned out. I feel like I was able to relax more this week and be more creative. Didn't really get a chance to work on my new art piece as much as I wanted to. I will have an update on that. I'll probably upload a short or put it in the posts on YouTube, and y'all can see where I'm at with that. I'm very close to being finished, so I'm super excited about that. So this is like my Highlands cow era, but as soon as I get my own Highlands cows drawn, I'm done with the other artwork. I'm gonna be working on my own. But for now, I'm borrowing this from Creative Fabrica because I love it. Everybody at our shows asks for Highlands cows. So I told my husband, I'm never getting caught without Highlands cows again. I'm going to put them on everything. So that's what I'm doing. I'm getting ready to attach that little wood square with the Highlands cow on it to my tote. I'm using wood glue and I'm using a little bit of hot glue. Obviously the wood glue is going to give it a permanent hold. I just really love him. I don't really love the cartoonish nature, and I'm more of a realist, but I'm working on it. I'm getting it done, okay? I'm working on a Highlands cow right now. I'm coming in with some clear wax to basically act as a barrier because I am going to use some brown wax, some Dixie Belle's Best Dang wax on the edges of every slat and that little picture of the Highlands cow. Just gonna give it that rustic look. It's very subtle. It's not super heavy. You're gonna see, and the reason it's not super heavy is that I have applied that clear wax first, and so it's sort of a barrier. And if I wanted to use it as an eraser, I could also do that. If I got too much somewhere, I could come in with some clear wax and take some of it off. I could also use a wet baby wipe. But if that's not enough, if it doesn't take enough off, I could use the clear wax. But I'm happy with how this is coming out. I'm loving just that little detail that I've added with the brown wax. Super, super cute. I'm so glad that this came to mind when sometimes I just walk out here and I don't really have anything in mind. My eyes fall on something and an idea pops in my head. I'm sure y'all are the same way. That's what I did here this week. I just picked out some materials I thought I could work with and made it happen. And we're going to call this my Highlands cow era for a while. Where I'm going to be stuck in this era because that's what my new art pieces are going to be for the next couple times. So I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with Highlands cows now. If you don't like them, I'll be mixing in some other things as well because that's not the only thing that I'm going to sell at my show in September and October. But it's definitely going to be a game changer having an original art piece that I did of a Highlands cow. It is most definitely going to be a game changer. So super excited about that. It's been a long time coming. I finally found some that I could photograph and spend some time with. So that was super fun for me and my husband. We've gone to 2 separate farms now and taken lots and lots of pictures. So, and that's something that I would say to you, that if you are artistic, sometimes it's a really good idea just to get back to what inspires you. Now I'm working on my second piece. This is that milk can. I think this came from Target in their dollar spot. It was obviously just galvanized metal. I'm painting the center of it, that band that goes around the center where there's no grooves or any other kind of markings. I'm just painting it the same color, the pale moon color, and you can see the other 2 boards I've prepared as well, same color. We'll talk about where those came from when it comes up. Now I'm coming in to paint the top and the bottom with just an oops paint that I picked up at Home Depot. I want it to be a brown, but I'm going to come back and give it a different finish, and you'll see that. So this may be one of those times where you're questioning my artistic vision, but don't worry, it's coming. So I know you can't see. I'm always stuck between this space where I have to hold it up to my face so I can see it, but then I know y'all want to see it too, but you know, it's a compromise. Like, just work with me here. Anyway, so now I'm going to come in and I'm going to decoupage my paper onto that band that I purposely painted out in this light color so that this paper would show. I'm measuring it so that I know that it has to be 4 5/8, whatever it was. I'm cutting it down, making sure that it stays square. And this graphic, I just typed in the words pastoral Highlands cow. So I basically wanted Highlands cows standing in a field. And so that's what I got here. And this is one of those, it's a seamless paper. So it's like a wallpaper. So you could line it up forever and it would line up edge to edge. So that's what I really love about Creative Fabrica. They have such a variation of things. Like, you could just, you know, go down a rabbit hole with their graphics for sure. So it takes 2 pieces to go all the way around that milk can. I sort of wish I had paid more attention to where I had placed my paper. I didn't. I just, you know, stuck it down. But I wish I had, because the seam ends up being in front. But it's okay. Like I said, it's seamless so you don't see it. But then I didn't pay attention to where the cows would be. So that sort of annoyed me at the end of the day. But, you know, it's crafting. What is it? So, you know, nobody else is going to know that but me and you. And, you know, that's not going to be something that comes up when somebody loves it. They're going to love it and they're going to buy it. So same exact, I'm using the same method on all 3 of our upcycles today. Rice paper, Mod Podge. You're going to get tired of hearing me say that. Now, the reason I painted this brown is because I'm going to do bronze rub and buff over this, the Spanish copper, I guess it's called. And so I'm really just using that so that I don't have to use a whole tube of rub and buff, and it will accept the finish much better. I'm just coming in here with an X-Acto blade, and I'm trimming down the paper where I may have overlapped it onto the part that I didn't want it to be. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm not worried about these rough edges here if they don't look perfect, because I'm coming in with a fix. So you'll see what that is. We're going to keep working on our project here. In the meantime, you saw that I had poured a frame into my mold there, poured resin into my frame mold is what I'm trying to say. And now I'm using wood glue to adhere that to my milk can. I'm going to tape that down with painter's tape and let it dry before I continue on. It wasn't the best pour I ever did. I spilled it a little bit because I didn't see what I was doing, because sometimes I can't see. So I'm going to tape that down there and just let it set. Come back to it in a minute or two when it's ready to behave itself and stay on the milk can. And now I've come in with another graphic from Creative Fabrica. And I'm going to just crease it around the oval where it needs to fit into that frame. And then I'm going to cut it out and I'm going to decoupage it right onto that sweet little frame. I've probably run to grab my decoupage medium, my Mod Podge, or my brush, or, you know, wherever I went. I'm back though. I always come back. Isn't that great? So here I am decoupaging my little cow onto my frame. I love that. It's just so cute. Now I am decoupaging over all of that paper. I do come in and paint those handles too. I don't leave them silver. I had thought about it, and then I decide that's not like in keeping with what we're doing here. So I do come back in and paint those. You'll see. Now I'm using that rub and buff, like I said, to create a finish on there. I'm also brown waxing around the edges. So that's what's taking away that rough edge that may have been there. It's just making it look very natural and very intended. Very intentional, I guess is the word. So I do go over just with a light coat of rub and buff all over that brown, because that's the look I'm going for. I'm going for a burnished copper. I'm not going for a painted look. And now I'm using all sorts of different paint and some texturing sand to make myself some patina medium. I'm using metallic paint. I'm using, the colors that I think patina would be. And I actually have a great copper kettle outside that I could go look at and compare my colors or whatever, make sure I was getting it right. And I'm just going to apply that patina where I think it would have naturally patinaed over the years. That's what I'm doing here. I'm also rubbing it in, and that's what gives it that cloudy look, that look that patina has that makes it look oxidized and cloudy. So that's what I'm doing here. It's absolutely not anything complicated. It's super easy to achieve this look. It's just a process. So that's all I've done. I'm not using any special product. I'm really not. I'm simply using paint with a little bit of texturing sand. And that comes from Folk Art, the same company that makes the paint. I'm loving how that looks. It's looking, and then the more I do, the more natural it looks. And you're going to see that I come in with some rub and buff and splotch it into those areas again, the same burnished copper or Spanish copper rub and buff. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just sort of going in, and if I've been too heavy with the patina, I'm coming in with some Spanish copper rub and buff and sort of blotching it in those areas. That's what I'm doing. This is one of those artistic endeavors that just makes me so happy. I could do this in my workshop for just about forever. Just stay out there and create finishes and, just be as artistic as I want to be. Something I really love. I do the same thing to the little frame with the cow, and then I also come in with this gold metallic and I splotch that on there too. I think that adds some further dimension and just some shiny points, and I really love what that does. I do that to the frame as well, and it brings back all those details that the mold created, which you don't ever want to lose. If you're using molds, you want to keep all that detail in there. So I'm just coming in with a flat brush, you see, and dabbing it onto the frame. I really love how this project turns out. It's one of my favorites. I know I say that a lot. Now, I'm using these round things, like I don't know what they are. We'll call them medallions. I seriously don't know what they are. I got them from the bins. I knew that I would use them for something. I'm painting them out white because, you guessed it, I'm going to decoupage on them. So they're basically going to be like my little IOD frames, but they're not. And here's the picture I'm going to use. A different cow, same creative fabrica. I'm also going to use those beads to make something special. Super excited about that. And these beads, they came from the Goodwill bins. You can see they were supposed to be used to make this gingerbread necklace, but that wasn't something I was going to do. I'm going to come in and decoupage those cows to those little medallions first, I think. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. And I just measured my medallions, and then I made sure that these would fit in them before I printed them out. I also created some text to go with them, and those are going to go on my little cutting boards. The cutting boards are actually the end pieces of a magazine rack. I love to use magazine racks to do different things, and this one, the only pieces I was really able to salvage were the end pieces. It was nailed together with really rough nails, so it was really hard to disassemble. Same thing, I'm decoupaging my little Highlands cow onto these medallions. This is another project that I'm super crazy about. I just think it turned out so sweet and so cute. And if you know, I'm going to tell you this. So when you do shows, just try to think of everybody who might buy. And one of the people groups that I love are young couples, especially little teenage couples or, couples in their early 20s, things like that. This end product is going to say, buy me cows and tell me I'm pretty. And that's a huge thing among farm girls and, cowgirls, cowboys, whatever, when they show up at our shows a lot. And I can just picture, a 17, 18-year-old girl walking up and showing this to her boyfriend and fully expecting him to buy it for her. And that's exactly what will happen. So, and I love that. And it's fun to watch people smile and like the things that you've made. When I sanded the edges off that decoupage paper, I sort of roughed up the edges, and I really didn't want that, so I came in with some more Rub and Buff, and I just covered up those edges. Definitely white resin right there. So the tops of those things were wood, but the edges were definitely resin. So I just covered that up, and now I'm going to use these hearts to do something super cute. I'm going to dry them first, I think, with my heat gun. I think that's what I do next. But look, I'm going to make these. I'm going to make a finger bow. You're going to see me do a multi-loop finger bow. I've done this in so many projects, and I keep promising that I'm going to slow it down and show you how to do it, but now's not the time. Today's not your lucky day. We'll do it again another time. But I'm going to bead those tails of my bow, and to do that I have to wrap some painter's tape around the end so that I can thread that string. So you see what I'm doing? I could do it with a needle, but I had the tape here, so that was super easy. Now I'm just going to thread the beads onto the string in the pattern that I want. I wanted to use these hearts because they have, they have a hole, like they're beaded, so yay. That was a super simple step that I didn't have to take. So anyway, and I make two separate patterns because I run out of the beads and I can't do the same pattern for both boards. You can see I tied a knot on the top and I tied a knot on the bottom of my beads so that they are in a fixed position. They are not going to slide up and down the string. They're going to stay where they are. And I like that. Listen, I say this all the time. I'm sort of a control freak when it comes to these things. Like, there would be no moving of the beads. They will stay in the place they are. So I know that's silly, but that's just how I want them to be. And then you're going to come in and I add a sweet little detail on one of those hearts that just makes me happy. I love all the little details in crafting. I don't know about y'all, but when it comes to embellishing and just adding those details that make a piece special, that's my favorite part. Even in a drawing, like if you're drawing a baby and you've gotten all the way to the end of your creation, you want to take time to add those sweet little baby curls or whatever it is. Like, you just always want to take time to make a piece special if you can, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to add first I'm just going to lay things out and make sure that everything is placed where I want it, that everything can be seen and it's not overcrowded, whatever it is. So I made this text, and listen, best practice would probably have been to make a stencil on my Cricut. Did not take the time to do that. Just printed it out on rice paper to make sure that all the finishes are the same and it doesn't look like it's been Mod Podged on there. I do take the time to wax the end of this anyway, and you would wax it anyway, but that finishing wax really is just that. Like, it sort of equalizes all your different finishes. So that's what I do at the very end of this. But for right now, I'm just Mod Podging it on. And then to make sure, like I said, that all my finishes look the same, I do actually Mod Podge over the entire board, because I don't want there to be, obviously, glue marks. Coming in with that hot glue gun again. Apparently I'm in a real big hurry today. I do notice that ever since I've been doing YouTube, I do use the hot glue gun or the heat gun on a lot more projects, and I think I called it a hot glue gun, but it's not. It's a heat gun, and I know that. I'm wrapping twine around the neck of my board. And then I'm going to put that little finger bow. First I'm going to burn all those extra hairs off. They don't belong on there. And then I'm going to glue it down over that little band of twine. I love that. And I don't worry, I do come in and paint the backs of those hearts. This is just sometimes in the effort of getting things done, we don't get things done. So there, I've Mod Podged that tiny little butterfly onto one of those hearts. I just love that. I think it's so precious. And I can just imagine a little, 18, 20-year-old girl falling in love with this project and wanting it for herself. Now I'm adding some rawhide hangers to my boards. They're both going to get the same treatment there. You can see I did 2 different bead patterns on there. I actually think I like the second one better. I think I prefer the bigger beads because they kind of match the whole project a little bit better. Anyway, I thought this was super cute. Stick around to see how everything turns out. I'm so glad y'all watched this video today. If you like what you saw, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell so that you'll know every time I upload a new video. And we'll see y'all next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.